Here's a surprising fact that might make you do a double take. Only about 42% of Americans have a valid passport. That's right, folks. Less than half of Americans have the golden ticket to international travel. So what gives? Why do so few Americans venture beyond their borders? Today, we're going to unpack this star-spangled mystery. Now, you might be thinking, hold on, isn't America supposed to be this wealthy, globalized nation? And you'd be right. The USA is one of the world's largest economies, with a population of over 330 million people. You'd think they'd be jetting off to foreign lands left and right. But when we dig into the numbers, we find that international travel is more the exception than the rule for many Americans. It's as if there's an invisible wall keeping them within their borders. And no, we're not talking about that wall. But before we dive into the reasons behind this homebody trend, for much of its history, the United States had a policy of isolationism. It was like the national motto was, "Leave us alone, we're busy manifesting our destiny." This isolationist attitude wasn't just about foreign policy. It affected how Americans viewed the world beyond their shores. The two world wars changed things, of course. Suddenly, Americans were traveling overseas in large numbers, albeit with guns and uniforms. Many returned with a newfound curiosity about the world. It was like a nationwide light bulb moment. Wait, you mean there's stuff out there? The post-war economic boom of the 1950s and 60s saw the rise of the Great American Road Trip. Families packed into their station wagons and hit the highways, exploring their own vast country. Who needs Paris when you've got the world's largest ball of twine in Kansas? International travel started to pick up in the 1970s and 80s, thanks to cheaper airfares and a growing middle class. But even then, it was often limited to quick jaunts to Mexico or Canada, or the occasional package tour to Europe. It was international travel with training wheels. Today, despite globalization and the internet shrinking the world, many Americans still prefer to vacation closer to home. It's like they've got a severe case of FOMO for their own country. Key factors. Why stay home? So why aren't Americans packing their bags and jetting off to far-flung destinations? Let's break down the key factors. Size matters. The vastness of America. First things first. America is huge, like really huge. It's the third largest country by land area, after Russia and Canada. This means that Americans can experience a wide variety of landscapes, climates, and cultures without ever needing a passport. Want beaches? Head to Florida or Hawaii. Mountains? Try Colorado or Alaska. Desert? Arizona's got you covered. It's like America is playing geographic bingo, and it's got every square filled. For many Americans, traveling within their own country feels like enough of an adventure. Why deal with passport control when you can drive from sea to shining sea? Time off. The great American work ethic, or lack of vacation time. Here's a fun fact that's not actually fun at all. The United States is the only developed country in the world that doesn't guarantee paid vacation days to workers. It's like America looked at the concept of work-life balance and said, nah, we're good. While many American workers do get some paid time off, it's often limited to a week or two per year. Compare that to countries like France, where workers are guaranteed at least 5 weeks of paid vacation. No wonder they have time to sip café au lait by the Seine. With limited time off, many Americans opt for shorter trips closer to home. It's hard to justify a trip to Australia when half your vacation time would be spent just getting there and recovering from jet lag. Cost, the almighty dollar, and how many you need. International travel can be expensive, and for many Americans, it's simply out of reach financially. Between flights, accommodations, food, and activities, a trip abroad can quickly add up to thousands of dollars. While there are certainly budget-friendly ways to travel internationally, the perception of high costs can be a major deterrent. It's like there's a mental price tag attached to the idea of international travel, and for many, it reads way too expensive. Language barrier. The monolingual mindset. Here's another surprising stat for you. Only about 20% of Americans can converse in a second language. Compare that to Europe, where over half of the population speaks at least 2 languages. This language barrier can make the idea of international travel intimidating. It's like the rest of the world is having a conversation, and many Americans feel like they showed up without the phrasebook. Cultural comfort zone. The familiarity factor. For some Americans, the idea of navigating a foreign culture can be daunting. Different customs, unfamiliar foods, strange social norms. It can all feel a bit overwhelming. There's a comfort in the familiar, and staying within the US provides that comfort. It's like choosing to watch reruns of your favorite show instead of trying that new foreign film everyone's talking about. Media influence, the news effect. American media tends to focus heavily on domestic news, with international stories often limited to major events or crises. This can create a skewed perception of the world outside US borders. When the primary exposure to other countries comes through news about conflicts, disasters, or political unrest, it's not exactly a great tourism ad. It's like the rest of the world is playing a constant game of fear factor in the American media. Geographic isolation. The island nation mentality. Despite not actually being an island, the US can feel pretty isolated. With only 2 bordering countries and vast oceans on either side, America is geographically separated from much of the world. This physical distance can translate into a psychological distance. For many Americans, other countries can feel abstract and far away, rather than tangible destinations. It's like the rest of the world exists on the other side of a very large, water-filled moat. Looking ahead. The future of American international travel. So, is America doomed to be a nation of homebodies? Not necessarily. There are signs that things are changing, albeit slowly. For one, passport ownership has been increasing over the years. In 2000, only 15% of Americans had passports. Today, it's up to 42%. That's progress. Even if it's at a pace that would make a snail say, "Hurry up." Social media and the internet are also playing a role in piquing Americans' curiosity about the world. It's harder to ignore the existence of other cultures when they're constantly popping up in your Instagram feed. There's also a growing awareness of the benefits of international travel, particularly among younger generations. Many millennials and Gen Zers are prioritizing experiences over material possessions, and international travel fits right into that mindset. Some companies are starting to offer more generous vacation policies, recognizing the value of well-rested, well-traveled employees. It's like they've finally realized that all work and no play doesn't just make Jack a dull boy, it makes him a less productive employee too. Study abroad programs are becoming more popular, giving young Americans a taste of international living. It's like a gateway drug to global citizenship, but perhaps the biggest potential for change lies in addressing the underlying factors. Improving language education, fostering a more globally minded media landscape, and challenging the notion that international travel is only for the wealthy. In the end, traveling internationally is about more than just ticking countries off a list or collecting passport stamps. It's about broadening perspectives, challenging assumptions, and realizing that despite our differences, we're all part of the same global community. So the next time you're planning a vacation, why not consider venturing beyond US borders? You might be surprised at what you discover about the world and about yourself. And that's the story behind why so few Americans travel outside the USA. If you enjoyed this video, hit that subscribe button. More fascinating looks at global travel trends and cultural comparisons are just a click away. Thanks for watching, and remember, the world is a book, and those who don't travel read only one page. So get out there and start reading.